Alright, many thanks for watching the Occult Sin. It's ShaughanParson. We're going to get into this presentation that I promise I'll make. It's metaphysical, it's philosophical, so go into it with an open mind and ponder about it, think about it, so you can comprehend it more. Okay, time, what we consider time, like TikTok, is very different from this time, the illusion of time. The illusion of time isn't perceivable to many people because they think of it from what we've been taught over the X amount of thousands of years, how we mark calendars. In fact, I wouldn't even go back that far because they probably had a whole, well, they did, in fact, have a whole different time system than what we had right now. Let's get into this. But our time system is definitely new. It's definitely new. Even our calendar, the Gregorian calendar, is very new compared to the ancient calendars in their systems. All right, perfect example how the Mayans had a calendar that went a span of hundreds of years, then it recycled. But our calendar recycles every year. That's a huge difference from civilization from one point in history to right now in the present. So let's get into this. What is time then? Time is an illusion, or better yet, it is a creation by none other than man. Age is also an illusion only existing in the mind. Okay, we'll get into that in a few. There are only two types of official times, beginnings and ends. Anything else is nothing more than a convenient marker for man to estimate. Alpha, Omega, beginning, end, start, finish. These are some examples of the only true existing official times. We'll get into what official times is versus times. These, however, are simply on a physical plane. If we dwell into the metaphysical, even these official times may naturally exist. For instance, in the universe, all right, the universe will have no end, and it is very possible that it may not even have a beginning. There is no actual tangible proof that the universe is X years old, besides what scientists claim and what scientists give us. I believe they give us this just so we can think we understand how old the universe is, but they probably have a whole different understanding about it that they won't share with the people. Just think about all the scientific studies that were accepted as fact and were used in teachings, but now no longer. That's, past science. That stuff is no longer considered factual or factoids. And also consider how scientists lie to the layman about stuff in scientific research, like space, for example. Space and the planets is a huge thing that we are still being lied to about. And of course, I don't see in the, perceivable future that the scientists or the governments or the researchers are going to be able to tell anybody about this information. It's going to be kept from the people for as long as possible until someone discloses it themselves, okay? So, first of all, let's talk about something, a disclaimer real quick, to kind of back all this stuff that I'm saying right now. If we go into the DNA or the chromosomes of man, that is also responsible for how he ages, of course, but that's also the way the DNA is being, altered, whether it's the living style of what they are eating or the way they're living with pollution, or whether their happiness is there or not, okay? You know that in this country, the life expectancy isn't as high as in other countries. That just shows right there that we all don't just live to a certain amount of years. It is in our, DNA, but our DNA is influenced by the world around us. So if we have an illusion of time, that is going to, we go to the next slide, that is going to alter how long we live. And I'm about to prove that right now. All right, let's get into the next slide. I purposely stopped the last clip so I can make a new clip because I went to get something to eat, but that's not just the sole reason why I did it. I did it to prove something, and that is time is your understanding. Your mentality manifests your reality of how you perceive time. My time right now is different from your time because I understand that I stopped this video. I went to get something to eat, and it's been 20 minutes. But if I never told you that, you would have thought that I just kept going with the clip. Maybe I trimmed it or something, but it was a continuation. When in reality, it's been a time span. Okay? A perfect or better, stronger example of this is that if I would have made one slide yesterday, and I made this slide 2 weeks from now, and then I posted a video 3 days after that 2 weeks, you'll see that there's a very different time span between that. But you, as a viewer, if I never mentioned that, may have perceived it as one continuation. Okay? Another example that is a different variety or a different way of explaining it is if you had a friend and they broke your laptop. 3 days after you got a new laptop, you wouldn't let your friend use that laptop because the time that you experienced when they broke that laptop is still lingering over you. It's still your reality. It still has strong influence over your perception, okay? 6 months from now, that friend is now using your laptop like nothing ever happened because even though it's one time, the way you perceive time is different. Now that time has gone and you see it as a different range, the time from 6 months ago to 6 months now are two different things in your eyes. Alright? So another way to think of it this way, one more example that's going to pretty much support all of this, is the perception of fun or boredom. If you take two people and you do an experiment and you have them in the same house but you have two different rooms, one with nothing and it's just they have to just sit in a room for 4 hours, let's say 4 hours, they're going to be extremely bored and their time is going to go much slower than the other person if you was doing an experiment and you put them in a room with, a television, a computer, music, headphones, or anything they want to entertain themselves. Their time is going to seem more like 2 hours, while the person who is bored, time may seem like 6 hours. So it's going to seem longer for the bored person, but shorter for the person having fun, even though it's the same time in general. Okay, so let's get to the next slide right now. I just want to put out those two examples so we could clarify some things and get everybody thinking or understanding even more how time is an illusion. So life and death. Death affects all. Animals, plants, and even man take part in the journey to the afterlife. But does death mean the end? To answer simply, no. Now understand that we aren't talking about religious afterlife, but instead metaphysical afterlife, or should I say more clearly, continuation. When does life begin? It's a deep question for the person that ponders about it. When does the fetus begin to house the spirit? Is it predetermined in the higher planes, or does it manifest after the body's form? Okay, let's jump into a different direction and think of it this way. Is there such thing as death? Even better, is there such thing as not living? To die on this planet means that the body simply fails to continue operation. So if we said that Bob didn't die, but instead Bob's body doesn't work anymore in this world, it's a whole different situation. If you think about it, that is what really happens. While animals break and die, most aspects of nature do not. Trees simply lose their leaves, then they return next spring. Same with most plants. Okay, so that's a very strong example, a very strong understanding of how life and death incorporates its way around time. Is there such thing as not living? That's even stronger question than is there such thing as dying? Because when you're dying, there's always that religious thought that there's an afterlife, whether it be a hell or a nirvana, a Shangri-La, a paradise, a perdition, doesn't matter. It's still seen in most eyes that there's something after the afterlife. So that's just a continuation if you really think about it, because if it's the same you when you're living, then it never really ended. And if it's eternal, did it ever begin before you were born in the first place? Alright, so just think about that. I'm going to leave this this presentation on my website. You can download it. It should only take like 3 seconds. So you can read them and then literally stop on each slide and think about all the questions yourself. So let's get into life and death part 2. Alright. Many people will find this a shock, but there are many animals that defy the standards of time and live for hundreds, sometimes thousands of years. There is even an animal that is immortal. We will talk about these animals in a few. Yes, this is real. Yes, I'm going to show you all these animals. So why do these animals live longer than man? I believe it is because they are ignorant in a good way, okay? One of the few times you're going to hear me say ignorance is bliss, all right? You see, they lack the key aspect to all of this time, life, death topic, and that is the very concept of time, okay? Or official time. Animals do not understand the concept of official time, although there are many that use markers like seasons. That's their downfall. Ironically, proving my point that acknowledging time shortens your time on this earth. Most of the creatures that live extremely long are sea dwellers, so they do not experience seasons changing, markers. Hence, they do not acknowledge time in any shape, way, or form. Now, I'm going to show you these animals after I've done this presentation, but what you need to understand is, I'm not saying that these animals live long because they're aquatic or aquamarine animals. That's not it at all. In fact, it may seem that way to a person that's not really thinking about it, but like I said, it's because they do not acknowledge seasons. You have deer, you have bears, you have wolves. They all acknowledge the changing seasons. Even birds migrate. But birds migrate for a different reason. It's not because it's too cold. It's because their prey, bugs and small other animals, if it was a bigger bird, go away during the winter. So they have to go to somewhere warmer. That's the real reason why birds migrate. But they acknowledge the seasons, and when the seasons change, they are using what I call temporary markers. How humans use markers to pretty much mark, literally, certain points in time, because they are not using official time. So let's get into the next slide. Blow that away, okay? Sun and calendar. Now, if we took out calendars from our society, time would be destroyed in many areas, proving that time, as we know it, is a man-made invention that exists solely in the mind. Many people will argue that the sun causes day and night, and that the world rotates around the sun and constantly spins, so of course time exists. No, in fact, that means that the earth rotates and spins. If you stop the world from spinning, the illusion of time would further break. Now, if you stop the earth from rotating around the sun and simply placed it still in the vacuum of space, the world would hold no true understanding of time. That's right, I said it. They would not. But only official time. Alpha, Omega, birth, death. You see no day and night and no understanding of hot or cold, or should I say hotter or colder, hence winter or summer, would shatter the illusion of time completely to add the finishing touches, remove from society the existence of clocks, watches, and calendars. And you will see that time will be destroyed in the minds of man. Okay? I really thought about this, and this is like literally, this is the reality. I just realized this. But you will find that there would be no need for time except for the remaining concept of age. Okay? Taking age into consideration, you will be left only with official time and markers set by humans, most likely to determine the middle span of one's age. Remember that time and official time are not the same. Time is the illusion created by man, and official time is something that exists in a physical plane, i.e. beginning, end. Alpha, Omega, start, finish. Okay? Cycle of existing. As we humans, we see the cycle of existing as life, death, and afterlife. But many people do not ponder nowadays, so they do not see the ignorance in this concept. If there is a life and there is death, then there is a afterlife. To consider afterlife is what ruins this whole philosophy. Because if we consider an afterlife, I'm not saying that it's wrong, but if we consider an afterlife, we would have to immediately shatter that and consider the fact that there is a before life. So the real chart will have to be not life first, but before life, then death, then afterlife. And that will consist of the very concept of existing as humans. Okay? If you really think about it, and I'm going to keep saying this, you have to ponder philosophically, because to understand this, you must become a philosopher. I'm really into philosophy, psychology, metaphysical topics, so this is, if not second nature to me. But I know some people may not be able to wrap their heads around what I'm saying in this presentation because they are conditioned into the ways of this earth. I am not conditioned into the ways that people live. And that's why I am expressing this right now, trying to teach you all what life, death, time, official time span is. So I'm going to stop this right now so we can get into those animals I was talking about that outlive man significantly. And we're going to go into further detail of how not seeing seasons allows them to live that long in the first place. But right now, let's start off with the rough-eye rockfish. They can live around the age of 200. The oldest one has been confirmed to live to 205 years of age. And next is the red sea urchin, which usually doesn't even live past 30 years of age, but under good conditions can live around 200 years of age. A very common thing we're going to see on the next couple of animals, okay? The bowhead whales can live around 211 years of age, and some scientists actually think that they can live up to 245 years of age. Hopefully, many people know this, because I think it's common knowledge, that the blue whale can live over 100 years of age. Okay, the koi fish, they generally don't live past 50 years of age, but they, well, one of them, actually not one of them, under good conditions can live. One of them lived to 226 years of age before it died. Now, this one was actually, safeguarded by humans and kept and was fed, daily and stuff. So under good conditions, this fish has the potential to live extremely long, as you can see. See how the ones in the wild live to around 50, but this one lived to 226 years of age. That's a extreme difference in time. Now, the tube worms from Vestimentifera, I hate that word. I can't say it fast, I don't know why. But anyway, these tube worms can live around 250 years of age. Once again, another common theme, 200 through 250 years of age. And the freshwater pearl mussels can live around the same age, 250, just conveniently. So let's get into the next slide. The tortoise. I think people know about this one, more or less you should. But 150 years of age is very common for tortoise. And they can live as old as 250 years. Many sources saying 255. Once again, that age zone. The quahogs can live around 400 years of age. And some are even found to be 500 years of age. That's extremely old. Let's throw in the 200 number out the window. But these two, the last two, throw those numbers out the window completely, with the Arctic sponge living to 1,550 years of age. One specimen was found to live that long. That's crazy. That throws out most people don't understand that. Many people couldn't even fathom something living that long that was a living organic creature. But a jellyfish takes that to a whole new level because it regenerates its body after full maturity, making it very possible for jellyfish to live become immortal. If they're not eaten, if they're not threatened some way and killed by something or washed up on shore and dried out, they can live to whenever. X amount of years, go on and on and on, because they can regenerate themselves. Very good example is how if a 50-year-old man turned back into a baby and then kept repeating the process. So pretty much I'm going to leave the link. I kind of went through this one because it's not really as much as we're talking about the animals itself. That's going to be a whole different video. What we're doing is supporting the theory that the exclusion of time will allow you to live longer, allow creatures to live longer. Now, what you'll notice about this, like I said, these creatures live underwater, but the water itself isn't the reason why they live so long. Which the reason is they don't experience seasons. Now, I know some people may argue with that and say that they have temperature seasons, like during the winter their water is colder, and during the summer their water is warmer, so they can feel the seasons. But this is really thrown out the window really fast, because many of these creatures, as you're going to see, like right here, these two, the sponge lives at the bottom of the water, very deep depths where they barely even get sunlight. Okay, what you're seeing in the picture is a submarine, not the submarine, but the little machines that the scientists use to explore the depths, shining a light on it. The jellyfish, obviously, in the picture you can clearly see that they live in deep depths. While there are some surface jellyfish, the ones that live longer are usually under the depths, below the twilight. Now, when you're below the twilight in the water, you can't see the sun. That's where the sun stops shining light, and it can't go any further. After that is darkness, and the temperatures are more or less the same because the weather isn't affecting it, cold or hot. Okay? Now, the quahogs, again, a bottom dweller. Okay? The tortoise is related to, well, it's not really as much of an aquatic animal as it is related to one, the turtle, the sea turtles. So that's an exception in this list. When we go to the next one, hold on, I skipped something? No, then. We go to the next one, the tube worms and the mussels, both bottom dwellers, once again, below the twilight. All right, if you know anything about whales, you know they dive extremely deep to the point sometimes scientists can't even track them for a while until they come back to the surface. So that's another one that's on this list. The koi fish is once again an exception to the list, like the tortoise, because these aren't generally found extremely deep. They just can live potentially very long. Okay. The rough-eye rockfish, another one that's extremely deep below the twilight, and the red sea urchins, another one that's below the twilight. So pretty much, as you can see, all these aquamarine animals, more or less, do not experience seasons. Hence, they do not have any way to indicate time whatsoever. All right, they don't have temperature, they don't have sunlight, so it's nothing that they can use, because there's nothing changing underwater, that will allow them to understand the concepts of time, even from an animal instinct that's destroyed within them. And I believe that's why they live potentially longer than most creatures. All right, so what I'm going to do is leave this document on my website. It's in the form of a PowerPoint, and you can read it, and I'm going to have the animals on there as well. You can see that. And the next video we're going to do is actually about the creatures that live under the twilight. That's a very interesting video. Many people, unless they are into aquatic animals, they don't really know about the interesting creatures that live under the twilight, because 95% of the ocean on this world is undiscovered by scientists, just to show you what we are still capable of finding. In fact, that's maybe the reason why they haven't explored it, because they don't want you to see what we are capable of finding. So I'm going to end this video right now. ShaughanParson, many thanks. I'm going to leave the link to the website in the description and on the video. Subscribe and like. Thank you.